Hi, everybody. My name is Roberta Morris, and I'm the founder and creative director of Leave It to Berta, based in San Francisco. I want to thank all of you for attending my session today. It's great to have all of you here, so let's get started. In today's session, I'll break down how to integrate good branding into your website design in 3 phases. And just to note, this is an interactive session. There'll be several opportunities for you to participate in the chat, so don't be shy. So let's start off with assessment. First of all, we're going to assess what your brand is about and what makes it special. And with that knowledge, we're going to integrate the brand identity into your website's design. And then we're going to talk about implementation. How do you leverage all of that to drive customers to your website and engage them to take action? But before that, a little bit about my background. I'm a creative director with over 20 years of experience, specializing in branding, including web design. I've worked both agency side and in-house for Fortune 100 and 500 companies, as well as nonprofits and small businesses. So I've worked for a range of organizational sizes. And every day I do my little part to make the world a better place, one website at a time. So let's start off with a question. What does branding mean to you? And feel free to drop those answers in the chat. What does branding mean to you? We've heard a lot about it. It's a buzzword all over the place, but what does it mean? So to boil it down to basics, good web design and branding go together like peanut butter and jelly. It's one of the most visible tools in a company's brand toolkit. It's really key that there's a strong connection between a company's website and its visual identity. Otherwise, you don't have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, just 2 plain pieces of bread. So what we're going to start off with is assessing your brand. We're going to give it a personality test. We're going to use 6 key components of successful branding to assess. So key component number 1 is personality. What would a brand be like if it was a person? Would it be bold, rebellious, sophisticated, fun, approachable? Values. What does the brand stand for? What is its value? Audience. Who's the brand's target audience? Who are its customers or users? Figuring that out along with what it stands for and its personality. The positioning. What is its differentiator in the market? What makes it stand out against the competition? That's really key. What's the brand's promise? What is it offering its customers? What is its value add? And lastly, but not leastly, its mission. What does it actually believe in? What does it do in the world? 6 key components of brand. So now that we've looked at the six key components of brand, we want to think about how do you integrate that brand knowledge into your website design. So what's a website you think integrates branding well? And feel free to put that in the chat. Spoiler alert, my go-to is always apple.com. And I think just about everybody in the design field cites apple.com as a poster child for good brand integration. So how do we stand out in a sea of sameness? Because the internet is a big place, as we all know. So the answer to that, solid brand integration. A website should not be a static parking lot. It should be a dynamic space. And while you do want your website to give information, you don't want it to just be an online brochure. You want it to be rather an opportunity for customers to interact with your brand. It's the most visible tool in your business toolkit, especially since advertising, social media, and those sorts of things can be really ephemeral. Your website is out there 24/7, so customers can access it anytime, hopefully without other distractions. So what you want to do is you want to invite the customers in. You want to think about what will drive business to your website by figuring out what your differentiator really is. Because we want to make sure your website doesn't crash land before launch. We're going to run through a couple of example home pages from websites in the same space. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the just plain ugly. We won't get too deep into navigation and other aspects, but just rather a quick hit of some of the homepage pros and cons, some of the things to embrace and some things to avoid. So the first two examples are in the cupcake space. This first example, I'm going to talk about the bad and then the good. So this first example is Toronto Cupcake. The whole thing is bad from the structure. There's no real navigation here. You know, there's no real solid call to action. There's just a bunch of little text on the screen. There's no real brand personality present. There's an attempt at a logo, but, you know, again, not particularly compelling. The product photo on the homepage lacks appeal. It's basically a stack of boxes and like one lonely cupcake, which is quite small and insignificant. There's the color scheme. It could be cool, the black and pink color scheme, but it's not really done well here, so maybe not that cool. And then if you see the inset of Michelle the Baker, on the About page, she looks kind of depressed, like she's not that happy to be selling cupcakes. But on the contrary, you have Kara's Cupcakes. The product photo is much more appealing. In this particular case, it's Easter cookies. The messaging is inviting and clear. Customers have a clear message to order the product. And what I really like about the copy is the use of bad puns. I give bonus points for that because that's one of my favorite things. And yeah, so concise copy, clear messaging. I mean, super important. And then if you want to talk about color palette, it's a friendly color palette, it's appropriate, it's pastel. And then on this About page, it's not just about Toronto Cupcakes, it's about Karen. And Kara appears to be happily baking, she's smiling and rolling out her dough. So this is a much more approachable company, a much more approachable baker, and she's personalizing it. It's not just about Toronto Cupcakes, it's about Kara. So the second two examples are from the life insurance space. This first one is Ethos Life. Bad is maybe a strong word for this, but there's definitely some issues that I want to point out. For starters, the hero image is ineffective. The photo of the family, which is there to draw in visitors with a human touch, is basically being covered up by all the messaging and the form. The green is, as a color scheme, the green is a bit somber and heavy-handed. And while it's clear that you're getting an estimate, it's a little presumptive to assume that customers are just going to fill this form out without getting more information, especially when it asks you what your nicotine habits are. To me, they're trying to build trust too hard and too fast. And it's not entirely clear what they're selling off the bat. I mean, it's from the blood work mentioned in the medical tests, maybe it's some kind of insurance, but it's a little unclear what type. On the contrast with Bestow, the hero is very clear. It immediately informs the customer what the product is and what to do next. When you use this nostalgic photography and this earthy vintage tone, it's going to speak to potential customers, potentially of a certain vintage, potentially adults that are old enough to have children. The Insurance 101 section, which, is part of the navigation, and I don't want to get too deep into that, but when you go into that link, it offers explainer videos that clearly articulate what the product is and why it's important. And it's got a cheeky humor incorporated into the videos that makes a potentially uncomfortable topic much more approachable, which is right in line with their brand voice. Because when you have a consistent brand voice, you can implement other content that's also in line with the brand, like this fun video I'm about to play. And it all kind of works together.
What is life insurance even for? Why do I need it?
Life insurance pays money to your beneficiary if you die. It's like a financial cushion if you're not around to provide for them. It can cover funeral costs, replace an income, pay off a mortgage, even fund a college education.
Yeah, there are no rules. It's 100% tax-free. I mean, they can spend it on anything, right?
Anything. So what would you do with $1 million?
Yeah, big ol' yeah.
Oh. Well, I give mine to charity.
I'm gonna change my answer.
So there you have it, a fun, cheeky, explanation of what life insurance is. Totally silly, but it gets the point across for sure. And so now that we've talked about assessment and we've gone through a couple of examples of good and bad branding integration into the website design, I'm going to give us a chance to do a side-by-side comparison. I'd like for you to notice the differences and how branding is integrated into these two website designs that are both in the children's education space. What do you think is effective or ineffective about these examples? And what would you see as your first action? Like what speaks to you about either one of these websites as a call to action? And feel free to put those answers in the chat. And now that we've talked about the good and the bad, here's just the plain ugly. This is like this is actually a real website, and please, for the love of God, don't ever design a website that looks like this. Moving on. And now it's time to start implementing what you've learned with brand assessment and website design into your next website project. So the question is, how might you implement good branding and design into your next website project? And feel free to put those answers in the chat. So the question is, how do you implement? Well, you start off by telling a story. You want to make sure customers know who you are and what to do next. So you create a funnel through copy, through structure, through calls to action. And a lot of people think, marketing funnel, sales funnel, oh, that's a dirty word. It's a good thing. Creating a funnel for your customers to act on not only is efficient, but it also is a value add to your customer. Don't keep them guessing. Use your brand's voice. Make sure the messages reflect the personality of the company. So make sure that the copy, the messages, the calls to action all reflect the personality of what the brand is about. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So think about what kind of images you're using. Think about, are you using stock? Are you using graphics? Are you using icons? Think about what's appropriate and what makes sense with the brand style. Also, think about, sometimes stock can be overused. So think about using authentic, even candid photography. Depending on the brand, that might show more brand personality. Video is also really compelling, as we saw in the Bestow example. So think about if that's, maybe it's an explainer video, for example. Just think about what can be helpful. Also, think about integrating movement or interaction with your website to engage your visitors with, maybe rollover effects or parallax scrolling or, something to just kind of give a little bit of movement. And at the end of the day, you definitely want to reflect your brand's look and feel. You want to reflect the logo, fonts, colors, styles. And to me, like the look and feel with the brand voice are like probably the two most important pieces to really start telling the story. And then the content of those images and words helps to further the story. But remember, don't try to read a customer's mind. Don't channel what you think they want. Don't channel who you think they are. Don't assume. Ask questions to get genuine answers. Keep it real. Try to use real customer voices whenever possible. Maybe you conduct interviews, user testing, maybe you gather testimonials and comments. Try to work those real customer voices into your site and into your messaging. Think about what will drive customers to your site. Maybe it's SEO, maybe it's ads, maybe it's social. Think about that outreach. And with that, think about what your differentiator is. What is your value add? Because if you can clearly articulate your differentiator, that's going to go a long way. What makes you different from the competition? And then try to create a mechanism for getting feedback and making improvements over time. And try to keep your content fresh in that way. You want to have repeat customers and repeat traffic. So what's next? How do you know if you're on the right track? So before you leave the launch pad, let's run through a pre-launch checklist. So we're going to run through a few items here to just ask yourself, did you implement the brand's look and feel and tone of voice into your website? Do visitors recognize the brand when they come to your homepage? Does it look and sound like you? Can you explain in a sentence what your differentiator is? It really should be that clear. Do people understand what your offer is? Do they understand what they're getting? And what action they should take next? Should they sign up? Should they donate? Is there something to purchase? And did you get feedback from potential customers or visitors or users? Did you do interviews? Did you do some research? Did you test? Did you survey? So with this pre-launch checklist in mind, you can make sure that you're ready to launch with confidence. 3, 2, 1, blast off. And with that, I want to thank you so much for attending my session. It was great to have all of you here. I hope it was informative and helpful and gave you some food for thought for your next project. Again, I'm Roberta Morris. I have over 20 years of experience in branding and web design. Please check out my website at leaveittoberta.com. And also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram at Leave It to Berta. And lastly, before I open it up for questions, a little shameless plug here. I'm available for website and brand design and consultations. So if you'd like to learn more, please contact me directly. And for those of you attending today, I'd like to offer a free pre-launch test flight. That's right, a free pre-launch test flight, or even post-launch. You know, if you've already launched your website and you'd like to get a second pair of eyes or a gut check on it, you know, feel free to sign up with the link on the screen or use the QR code, and you'll be able to schedule a chat with me to walk through your homepage. You'll answer a brief questionnaire so the conversation is more productive for you. And, you know, we just want to make sure that you're on the right track. So definitely feel free to sign up for that. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions.